After watching that brief video, it should be fairly easy to see why Charlotte is such a booming and up-and-coming city. With the light rail, the jobs that are here, and the beautiful scenery, it is no wonder why everyone wants to live here. However, it's created a little bit of a problem. We don't currently have enough affordable housing to sustain all of the residents either currently here or anticipated. Here's how my topic of communication ethics and literacy is going to be excellent in resolving the housing crisis here in Charlotte. Now, if you happen to have voted in this past November's election, one of the items that you probably saw on the agenda, which happened to have been approved, was Charlotte's $50 million housing bond. Now, this will go towards creating more affordable housing for residents who currently lack it. However, one of the greatest challenges and struggles that Charlotte is still facing is zoning, and residents not wanting affordable housing in their area. Now, this may be likely due to the fact that some residents feel like this will create more traffic, more noise, and possibly an uptick in crime if affordable housing is brought to their communities. Crisis management within communication and literacy addresses how we can combat those differential concerns amongst opposing forces. This methodical view requires the gathering and understanding of data along with learning from differences. Change will ultimately require partnership from several forces within the Charlotte community, such as developers, lawmakers, residents, council members, and so forth. Otherwise, if not, the city of Charlotte could quickly see itself becoming a one-dimensional community that looks more like the outdated fictional community of Wisteria Lane than a progressive city that is inclusive of all backgrounds. Gentrification has also played a major part in the lack of diversity being shared amongst certain segments of Charlotte. As certain locations become considered prime real estate for a booming city, it often displaces current residents who are either people of color or those with a significant financial burden and replaces them with people who have the means to pay more for affluent properties and communities. Original residents are then forced to find placement into limited neighborhoods that match their affordability needs, while leaving gentrified neighborhoods the look and feel of cookie-cutter communities. A prime example of this issue is a neighborhood called Bright Walk, located on Statesville Avenue here in Charlotte. When Bright Walk was built, city leaders said the beautiful, thriving community would be a shining example of a mixed-income neighborhood. 10 years ago, that location was crime-ridden and predominantly African American. Today, however, although anyone is able to rent in the neighborhood, home ownership is targeted towards those who earn more than double what the original price of the neighborhood used to be, which means that many of the former residents can no longer afford to live there, and the homeowner demographics have greatly shifted towards those of a Caucasian descent. Susan Hardin, who will represent District 5, which is the South Park area, said there needs to be options at different price points for families all over the county. Per Hardin, and I quote, "It is critical that areas like South Charlotte stay affordable for teachers and firemen and retail workers." A 2017 study by Truella found the median income for teachers in Charlotte to be $47,260. Currently, only 21% of housing available would even be affordable for teachers. Hardin taps into the fact that no matter the location in Charlotte, housing needs to be affordable for working middle-class adults. Now, here's essentially where we better understand the need for communication, ethics, literacy, and dialogue. In order for the city to begin working towards a path of diversity while simultaneously tackling the housing crisis, there needs to be a realistic and obtainable foundation in place. Communication ethics in business and professional settings requires a commitment to two complementary communicative actions. One, clarity of direction, and the other, the courage to pivot and change directions if and when necessary. Clarity of direction invites a particular group of persons and moves others to another place. In an age in which virtue and value agreement is difficult and often impossible, it should not surprise us that a clear direction, united with willingness to engage change, will both attract and repel given residents. The dialogic ethic model focuses on the following points, which are what I would recommend for residents opposed to opening up their neighborhoods to change: listening without demand, attentiveness, and dialogic negotiation. At city council meetings that discuss zoning and housing affordability challenges, business owners and those impacted by housing deficiencies need to become more vocal in addressing the need for enhanced cultural communities. Charlotte residents must be willing to practice communication ethics literacy, which prompts them to work from their own position while learning from that of the other and interpreting that material for the task of the moment in pragmatic engagement with the other. Keeping the conversation going in such an era begins with meeting what we do not know, which permits learning and ironically sheds more clarity on the ground or position upon which we stand. Embracing changes within one's community requires not only a form of personal self-evaluation, but also removing the stigma and stereotypes about those who have the potential to share a common dwelling place. Whether we like or dislike that moment, we must engage the question of a given moment. Ironically, this is where listening without demand begins to flourish. Residents who are opposed to changes in their communities are able to hear the challenges faced by those who have been impacted by housing shortages. The key is response to the good, the bad, and the ugly of life, fighting the common impulse for life to conform to our demand. A practical theory which aims to improve life in concrete ways is designed to capture the rich difference among situations and to provide a set of understanding that lets people weigh alternative courses of action to achieve their goals. Attentiveness requires a sense of care and compassion for the needs of others. Residents must become open to the challenges of others. With grounds of other, it shapes communication ethics for self and other. It is a commitment to something beyond the communicative partners to protect and promote human responsiveness and a call to a labor of care. First-time City Council member Braxton Winston also urges that the city alleviate part of the housing crisis by the practice of what is called inclusionary zoning. This requires that a certain percentage of housing be set aside strictly for affordable housing. In some other states, cities can require by law that developers include a certain percentage for affordable housing. North Carolina, however, does not require that, which ultimately means that lawmakers have to also be included as a necessary participant to create change. Braxton argues, and I quote, "We cannot just attack the problem by looking at units alone. When it comes down to it, we have to step back and have a creative vision for our city. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of city do we want? Do we want to continue to have a siloed city that is segregated not just by race and color demographics, but also by wealth, health, and education? I don't think that's what we want, nor have been crying out for here in Charlotte." There are two potential outcomes to the issue based on the actions of the City of Charlotte. By applying the pragmatic method of crisis communication to the housing issue, Charlotte will open itself up to becoming a more diverse community around the entire city, and not just segmented areas, far beyond what is currently seen. Utilizing the suggested methods will create inclusive communities that create more conversations regarding differences and challenges or breaks the once established perceived stigmas surrounding lower income housing. If by chance resistance towards change remains steadfast, then we will not only continue to see a lack of diversity and inclusion in multiple areas in Charlotte, but it will likely grow. Areas and communities that tend to follow this path seemingly become more narrow in their thoughts towards those who require help. This is possibly due to them becoming indwellers, resulting in a lack of awareness of other cultures as they view their own culture in an unreflective norm and the right way of life. In the future, I would urge more push on several fronts. Those who want change should attend local zoning and city council meetings to give a voice and a face to the issue. This is going to be one of the first requirements prior to even changing or challenging the current lack of inclusionary housing in the state. Lawmakers cannot change what is not addressed. In addition to that, statistical data presented at those meetings would further argue the benefits of inclusion by those cities that have already embarked on the transition. So data, updated laws, and an openness by the residents are going to be the driving factors of change. Crisis management within communication ethics is just the vehicle that is necessary for helping us get there. That concludes my presentation. Here's a look at the references utilized. However, hopefully this video has given you a better idea of how crisis communication and communication ethics, literacy, and dialogue is an excellent way to resolve the Charlotte City housing crisis. Thank you.